Hi, and welcome to PowerViews. I'm Dan McDade, your host and president of PointClear. PowerViews is dedicated to finding solutions to some of today's toughest marketing and sales challenges. My guest today is Carlos Hidalgo. Carlos, welcome to the show. I wanted to pass along to the audience that you're a thought leader in B2B marketing for your knowledge and expertise in lead management process and marketing automation. And I know that you've been recognized now for 3 years in a row as one of SLMA's 50 most influential people in sales lead management. I know because I see you out there all the time. You're a frequent speaker, blogger, and guest contributor to many B2B marketing publications. And prior to the Annuitas group, you were responsible for global SMB marketing at BMC Software. Prior to that, you held similar roles at other B2B companies, including McAfee, Staffware, and Bertram McKee and Associates. At Bertram, I know that you delivered strategic marketing, lead management, lead generation, and database development programs for Microsoft, IBM, HP, Avnet, and that you received your bachelor's degree in business communications from Cedarville University in Ohio. So how did you end up in Colorado Springs after that?
You know, I keep migrating west. I like the mountains. I like the outdoors. I like skiing, fishing, and everything that comes with it. So I think I've got about as far west as I'm going to go. And I love Colorado Springs. So thanks for having me, Dan. It's great being here.
I stayed at the Broadmoor one time a long time ago and have fond memories of that. So that's just a beautiful area. I wanted to both point the audience to, as well as read a couple of quotes from an article that you published. It's on the online marketing blog, and it was dated June 13th, 2012, about marketing automation. I thought there were a couple of really interesting comments in particular. One talking about, how can organizations ensure that those sales and marketing live up to expectations, and that's something that I think we all deal with. You mentioned that, when your top decision makers come together and recognize that SLAs are built to better service and align around the customer, and that you'll generate more revenue, that the discussion about who didn't live up to expectation kind of goes away, because the SLA expectations are really about needs being met, again focused on the customer. And changing that mindset allows alignment to get much easier. Kind of further on, you mentioned that SLAs need to become part of the fabric of every organization at every level. And then finally, which I love to see, how frequently should our prospects hear from us via email? Be sure not to get caught up in the email-only trap. Use live events, telephone, direct mail, and social as part of your multi-channel mix. And I thought I would start out our conversation today to just talk about, it's hard to believe we're already here, almost October of 2012. The year is behind us, but,
I know.
What have you seen this year? What do you expect to see the rest of this year? And even taking a look at 2013, what do you think are some of the changes that you expect to see, changes you've seen or changes you expect to see here in the near term?
I expect to see more change. I think marketers are at a place where they understand what they need to do. They understand where they need to go. What they don't understand is what are the practical steps on how to get there. The other change I've seen this year is, I think for the first time ever, from a skill set and a knowledge and an understanding of the Buyer 2.0, I really think marketers are ahead of salespeople. I say that based on my own personal experience and then also the interaction we have with our clients. But if I had $1 for every time each week I get a phone call or an email from a sales rep that says, hey, saw your name, or you downloaded this, or you stopped by our booth, would you like to set aside 30 minutes to see our product? That just clearly signals that from a sales perspective, B2B salespeople still have not adapted to the new buying environment that we live in. And I think marketers recognize it. I still don't think there are a lot of marketers who understand here's step 1, step 2, step 3, and here's the practical change we have to bring to our organizations in order to have a buyer-centric view and a buyer-centric environment and culture from our company perspective.
Well, that kind of ties or kind of links into marketing and sales alignment, which I generally would ask a little bit later. But let me just go ahead and ask now, since we've talked about it. What is it about this subject of marketing alignment sales that is so difficult for companies to get? What is happening, and what do you think is going to have to happen to change it?
Yeah, first of all, it is. It's a difficult conundrum in which we live in. I think part of the problem is marketing and sales alignment is not the core issue. And I think when we focus on how do we align marketing and sales, we're focusing on a symptom and not the core challenge. And I think the core challenge is really driving that demand process through the organization, which is a holistic approach of people, process, content, and technology, and having marketing and sales work in a collaborative fashion in each of those areas. That also includes common metrics and objectives. So we're working with a client right now where we jointly built the SLAs and the business rules. We're mapping those back to the systems to send alerts. And lo and behold, sales is actually making that part of their compensation plan, is the adherence to the SLAs. Now, marketing is also tied to that on some of their bonus objectives. And so now you have both organizations who work together to say, what is a common SLA? Can we both agree to this? And now they're both managing to those same objectives and being compensated as such. There is a complete alignment across that organization. Never once did we start the conversation with, how are we going to get you guys to get along? It was, here's the issue. Let's develop the process. Let's implement the change that's required for that process. And now let's measure to it. And it's going really, really well.
Well, let's drill down just a little bit. I think you mentioned people, process, content, and technology, but mostly around marketing and sales process. I can understand how IT might get involved, and I certainly have always said that I think the C-level executives or the most senior executives need to get involved and kind of behind something like this. But do you see it as broader than that? I mean, is this bought in by literally every department in the company, and how do you kind of tie in all the other departments at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think we do get caught up in talking solely about marketing and sales, but I think if you look at it from a C-level perspective, it's really an operations function. In many cases, we see a finance department getting involved. How are we going to track? Because if you're going to be tracking all the way through to revenue and close, finance has to be a part of that. Yeah. In most global organizations, you do see IT getting involved, and so they have to manage that IT infrastructure, and it's not just about marketing automation and CRM technology. You also have the website that's involved, that whole web architecture. You have business intelligence applications that get involved. So I think it's really getting back to, what are we trying to accomplish here? What we're ultimately trying to accomplish is creating more revenue by engaging at a deeper level with our buyer. And I know there's been a lot written lately about terms of engagement and relationship. I'm not going to get into all those semantics, but I think we really, as an organization, the goal is to take a more buyer-centric approach to how we relate to them. And that involves every part of the organization. It surely involves the website, which is going to bring IT. So I think having that idea and driving that type of cultural change through the organization is what's going to get everybody involved and everybody moving in the same direction.
I know another subject that I'm sure you're passionate about, as I know I am, is the so-called description of inbound versus outbound marketing. Yeah. And it seems like every time you bring that up, depending on which side of the equation the other person is on, it's sort of it creates an argument, I think, as much as anything about inbound versus outbound marketing. But is outbound dead? Is outbound part of the total marketing picture? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I had this conversation yesterday with a client, and she referred to, I've got to develop how I'm going to approach inbound versus outbound. And I said, well, all due respect, I said, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. I said, you really need to look at how am I going to integrate my inbound with my outbound. And so if you look at inbound being that, at this most simplistic, being found, that's great. So what are you going to say when you're found? You got to be able to say something, and so now it's that integration. And when I read that, it's only inbound and that outbound is dead. That's like saying email's dead or telemarketing is dead. I don't think any of it is dead. I think it's the way that we're using them. So I think having an inbound strategy that's integrated with an outbound strategy, and again, ultimately a buyer-centric strategy and an engagement strategy that includes both of those, is key to any kind of success that an organization wants to have. So I don't believe starting a conversation outbound is the best way. I think being found and using inbound, but you've got to be able to respond to that, which is at its core outbound marketing.
And a lot of companies, they don't drive enough inbound, in order to survive, so they basically have to do outbound. What do you think about the statement that I'm sure you've seen a lot of, and I know I read probably every day some argument or some article that talks about that, is 70% of the buying process is complete before a sales rep even needs to get involved.
Right.
Is that the state of the industry right now, or how do you respond to that statement?
That's a great question. I've seen anywhere from 40% to 70%. Gartner says by the year 2015, 85%. It's interesting. I don't know how you quantify buying journey. Is it the first time I have the thought of, hey, I'd like to maybe perhaps buy this product? Is it the first time you go out online? So I don't know. I do know this. I do know that the buyer has more access to more information than ever before. The buyer has access to your customer base, to my customer base, to my client's customer base online, through LinkedIn, through Quora, through social groups. I can collect as much information as possible. So I don't really think it's fun for me to look at numbers, and if you've read some of my stuff, I'm a big stats guy. I love the research, but I think the core point is the buyer is not as reliant on the organization or the vendor to collect the information anymore. It really truly is about what are we doing to communicate with them and really help shape the conversation and get involved in the dialogue from an educational standpoint, and not always be so ready to sell, because the buyer has the access to the information with or without us.
Yeah, so the call, that our nightmare is the sales rep calls up and says, some telemarketing company in Atlanta said you're interested in buying something. What are you looking for?
Right, exactly.
We unfortunately see a little bit of that.
So you're the ones that are calling me on a weekly basis asking me for 30 minutes, right?
No, not us. We don't do that. That's certainly not our approach. But I know exactly.
I know you don't. That's why we get along so well.
I know that's exactly. I know those are the kind of calls that I get. As a matter of fact, I record some of those calls and then send them back to the companies that are buying those services. So
I got to start doing that. I like it.
What advice would you give as we kind of look towards 2013? You just stated a couple of minutes ago there's so much information and there's so many different tools. I don't know about you, but I find myself frustrated every week, but not getting to things on my to-do list because there are just so many things to do. But what do you see as maybe some of the keys as marketing and salespeople look towards 2013 to success for the next year?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's about learning as much as you can and investing in the skills of your people. A lot of statistics out there. The average marketer receives less than $1,000 a year in training. 85% of marketers, according to Sirius, describe themselves as self-taught. And then another research study showed that 77% of marketers either rate themselves as only somewhat or not at all effective. Those are staggering numbers. I mean, that's a large majority of marketers saying, I'm really not too good at my job. I think the sales statistics that I have seen don't show something that's pretty similar to the B2B marketing space. So I think number one, invest in your skills. One of the best conversations I had last week was with a marketer who said, my company is not sending me to this conference, so I'm literally taking some of my PTO and my own dollars and I'm getting myself down there because this is stuff I need to learn to be successful, and I'm going to invest in my own career. So that's number one. Number two, I think you got to get in your buyer's shoes. Understand your buyer. I actually have a blog post coming out here next week. Don't know if you've seen it, but it's the Honda Accord 2013 commercial. And it starts off and it says, we know you. And it talks about all the things that they know about drivers and how they've been able to make a car specifically for us. First commercial I've seen in a long time that makes me say, I want to go buy that.
Yeah.
But it's a perfect example of Honda has taken the time to know that we're tired, we're frustrated, we have relationships, we work, that we've got to drive in the pouring rain, and they've designed this car to address that. And I think from a marketing perspective and a sales perspective, don't call me and say, would you like to see my product for 30 minutes? I don't have time. We're all very busy, and you're one of X number of phone calls I'm getting on a daily basis, as well as emails. Put ourselves in the buyer's shoes. Find out what makes them worry. What keeps them up at night? What challenges do they have on a day-to-day basis? What is the political landscape? And you know what? Get to know them on the personal side as well. How many kids do they have? What are their hobbies? What do they like to do? What do they not like to do? Now, that's harder on a grander scale, but you've got to start somewhere. And I think marketers and salespeople who truly get to know their customers will be light years ahead, because now you can plan the content, you can plan the delivery of that content, and you start to build a demand architecture and a demand process that really is going to be an outcome, value-based outcomes rather than opens, clicks, and shares.
Yeah, I read an article today, and I wish I could think of who wrote it, but they were talking about how you can't pat somebody on the back with an email, right. And you can't really reach out and learn about somebody's family and their interest with an email. So I think those are really well stated. How can our audience get in touch with you should they have questions or they want to learn more about your organization, Carlos?
Sure. You can visit us on our website. It's annuitasgroup.com. That's ANNUITASGROUP.com. You can follow me at Twitter, which is @CA Hidalgo. Hidalgo is HIDALGO. So follow me on Twitter. My direct phone line is 719-966-7548, and my email address is chidalgo@annuitasgroup.com.
Well, thank you again for joining us. I hope to see you out there in the industry. I don't think I travel as much as you do, but I'll be looking forward to doing a little more in 2013. But at any rate, thanks again. And this is Dan McDade signing off on another edition of PowerViews. Thank you for watching.